Mark Twain once quipped, "Most people are bothered by those passages in Scripture which they cannot understand. But as for me, I always notice those passages in Scripture which trouble me most, because those are the ones I do understand." I think I'm going to have that embroidered and printed in the wall. He has a point. At this last week's Wednesday Bible study, we couldn't help but notice how these readings hit home, so close to home. The words from the prophet Habakkuk, paired with the gospel, felt almost unsettling. It's strange, isn't it? Something written back in the 7th century BCE still sounds like it could have been written for us today. Habakkuk writes, "O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not listen? Or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see wrongdoings and look at trouble? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise, so the law becomes slack and justice never prevails." Pretty raw, right? Ever felt like your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling? Habakkuk sure did. He's crying, "O Lord, how long shall I cry for help and you will not listen?" Hits home for anyone who's ever felt ignored in a tough season. It's raw, it's honest, and truly, we've all been there, waiting for an answer, wondering if anyone is listening, feeling like maybe, just maybe, our struggles don't matter. I think that's why we love those comfortable verses like, "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Because they feel like a warm blanket. But then there are those hard verses, "Love your enemies." That one, not so cozy. More like a boulder on our back. It's tough to swallow, especially when you've already worn out. Still, navigating these ups and downs teaches us something. Patience, compassion, for others, sure, but also for ourselves. So that's where the real strength starts to grow. Habakkuk's story isn't just about frustration. It's also about hanging on, even when things don't make sense. Staying open to God's moments in our lives means keeping our hearts soft, even when silence is just downright deafening. God doesn't always show up in the way we want, or when we want. Sometimes the answer is patience. Other times it's a lesson we won't see until later, like when you're piecing together a puzzle, and only when you step back do you see the whole picture. Fast forward to the 1st century. The disciples, facing their own struggles, come to Jesus and say, "Increase our faith." You can almost hear the desperation in their voices. Professor Joel Green, a biblical scholar, points out something interesting. Before the disciples asked Jesus to increase our faith, Jesus hadn't talked much about faith. And when he did, it was more about living it out than simply believing. The disciples weren't just asking for belief. They wanted to know how to live it day by day. In other words, help us actually do this. Help us to get out of our head and get into our heart and into our hands and to our feet. But then Jesus doesn't just hand them an easy answer. No quick fix, no magic moment. Instead, he talks about how even a tiny bit of faith, a mustard seed's worth, how it can do such incredible things. Recovering from an injury can be such a challenging journey. Whether you've broken a bone or battled a long illness, the frustration can feel overwhelming. You put in the effort, doing your exercises, eating well, and attending therapy, but it can seem like progress is moving at a snail's pace. Then one day, you notice you can walk a bit further than before, or you realize you're experiencing less pain. It's a gradual process, and sometimes healing comes softly and unexpectedly, almost sneaking up on you. Remember, each small step forward is a sign of our strength and our resilience. That's somewhat similar to what Habakkuk is describing. And it's precisely the kind of patience and effort Jesus is getting at. Jesus didn't give the disciples a sudden jolt of faith. He walked with them, taught them, and let them grow step by step. Only after the resurrection, looking backward, did they see how far they had come. That's when their faith started to move the world. 2,000 years later, we still feel the ripple. It wasn't until the resurrection that the disciples received the boost of faith that they were asking for. After witnessing the risen Christ, they became men and women of tremendous faith, faith that went to change the world. And it was at the Pentecost event that they were boldly seen on the streets of Jerusalem. Peter preached a powerful sermon, and the disciples baptized 3,000 people. And from there, they went on to establish churches throughout the Mediterranean. Despite their ordinary backgrounds and small numbers, these men and women began something that continues to influence the whole of us. Their faith enabled them to tap into God's power and to change the world. So what do we take from all of this? Faith is rarely instant. It grows slowly through doubts, struggles, and a small daily choices. Like Habakkuk, we cry out. Like the disciples, we ask for help. And even when we wish for a quick fix, real growth happens over time. Jesus doesn't just show up for the big dramatic moments. He's there in the small stuff too. Every time we choose to be kind or give ourselves a little grace, we're letting Jesus work in our lives. Because those tiny choices, they all add up. Think of it like running. The more you do it, day after day, gradually increasing your distance each week, the farther you can go. Soon you'll find you're running further than you ever thought possible. Remember the mustard seed story? Jesus said even the tiniest bit of faith can move mountains. He never said we had to have it all together. Just a little genuine faith is enough. Habakkuk's journey is another reminder to not give up. even at your lowest, grace can surprise you. A stranger's kindness, a moment of insight, a door opening that you never saw coming. Honestly, I've had days where I just wanted God to swoop in and to fix everything. And I bet I'm not alone there. But life usually isn't the quick fix. Truly, it's more like a marathon. Slow, steady, and sometimes exhausting. But the only way you can complete a marathon is by getting started. You got to start running. Bad days happen. Faith means hanging on, even when nothing makes sense. So a few things that we might want to consider to keep going when things get rough. Be patient. Real growth takes time. Trust the process. Looking back, I can see how tough times shaped me for the better. And stay open. Sometimes God surprises us in ways we never expected. Because in the end, faith isn't merely about having all the answers neatly lined up. It's a gentle journey of trusting step by step that you will never truly are alone on this path. Sometimes, if we are fortunate, that single word, that single step that we just now started, can transform everything in an instant. Faith operates similarly, unfolding gradually, bit by bit, day by day. So let's keep our hearts open. Sometimes the silence is growing something good inside of us. Sometimes the waiting is the answer. And when we look back, we might see how every struggle was a stepping stone and not a stumbling block. Significant change seldom occurs in a flash. Instead, it nurtures and flourishes over time. Often it's in looking back that we fully grasp the extent of our transformation. When we take a step back to reflect and see the incredible distance we've journeyed on this winding road of life towards faith. So let's stay hopeful, stay open, because you never know how the story will unfold.